Hello, everybody. I am joined by the amazing, the fabulous, I'm a sucker for a good smile. I have to tell you, Wolfgang Poker coming in with that glorious smile, coming in with the 1 million subs on YouTube, which is incredibly impressive. I cannot even begin to explain to you how humbled I am by you taking the time to join our small channel here at PokerOrg. But welcome, first of all,
Thank you for
Wolfgang.
having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's still pretty surreal to hear the number 1 million that follows my name. That's pretty crazy. 4 years ago, when I started the channel, I didn't think I'd ever get to 100K, let alone a million. So
It's completely bananas. And I can see why, though. You have a really just lovely positive energy, but in a way that feels kind of relatable. I definitely get it. But I can also say there's so many shticks out there. There's so many, I think, trash talking, causing drama and problems. There's a lot of ways to get to the top. Your way seems to have been very, very rich with integrity, I'll say. It just feels very wholesome.
well, I appreciate
And
that.
so I wanted to kind of, for our audience at least, and for the purposes of writing an article, I wanted to sort of first get your story for the homies out there who don't already know. Explain to us sort of it started in 2019. This was right before, the world was about to change for a long time. Um, Talk to us a little bit about the impetus for starting the channel.
Yeah, so I went to Pepperdine for school, and as a Christian university, not many degenerates out there, but luckily I found a few of them, and we would do like weekend trips to play poker at Chumash up in Santa Barbara. And yeah, I just fell in love with playing poker like once or twice a month. And one time, like a few months into this escapade, I hit quads with pocket sevens, which is why it's my favorite hand. And I immediately hit and ran the table. And that's just yeah, of course, that's like my story. Um, and ever since then, that was kind of it. But I can go more into like how I got into the vlog making and stuff. But in terms of me and poker, is friends in Chicago, then friends at Pepperdine, and then kind of a luck box story, hitting quads in a big 2-5 game at the time, and just falling in love with it.
Dude, Pepperdine is so gorgeous. And also, I were you even considering content creation as an occupation as a young man at Pepperdine?
No, I wasn't really considering much other than going to the beach and eating acai bowls and playing soccer like a few times a week. But I really wanted to go to USC. I got waitlisted, and then I had no idea what Pepperdine was, and my counselor's like, "Yeah, you should apply here, and then you can always transfer to USC afterwards." And I didn't want to transfer after that. Um, just such a nice setting. But for all the people that are watching, we didn't come for money. I still have student loans at the moment, so I just kind of went there on the whim, and luckily it all worked out well. But no, I
My
was an
mind was reeling
economics
there too.
major.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I was like, oh,
No, I mean
homeboy's rich.
when you say you went to a school that costs 80K a year, I mean, yeah, that's the first thing people say when I say that out in public, and I have to be like, no, I'm actually still paying back student loans. It was very expensive for me too.
Me too.
But no, I was an economics major and a German minor. And actually, a fun fact, I don't know if I've said it on an interview before. I've definitely said it in public, but in my German class, a year before me was a guy named Dan Zach. And if anyone in the poker world knows Dan Zach, yeah, he was like the player of the year a few years ago and just an absolute crusher. I've actually never met him in person yet, but him and myself were in the same German class with the same professor. So that's pretty cool. I've yet to meet him though.
It's such a weird small world.
I
Sometimes
know.
it
I
just
don't know if he
blows my
even knows
mind.
that. Yeah.
Just blows my mind. Well, he's going to find out now. We're going to tweet at him. Don't worry. We will let him know. But so, I think a mistake I've actually made in my life several times is thinking that a market is oversaturated and then later discovering like 10 years down the line that it was just the beginning. And I think in 2019, if you would have told me, hey, I'm starting a poker vlog, I would have said, good luck, dude. There's like 80,000 streamers and poker vlogs and Twitch things going on. So talk to me a little bit about the impetus, sort of the motivation, the hustle, the grind, the beginning of the channel.
Yeah, so it came to fruition like right at the end of 2019, early 2020. I had inspiration from the Trooper, shout out to him, and Andrew Nemi. That's kind of like the people I was binge watching at the time. Loved the Trooper and the lifestyle videos, and then I loved the way Andrew would incorporate more poker with more cinematics. And at the time, I had just graduated Pepperdine, maybe a year or two after that. I was deciding still, as many people are, like what to do with my life. I didn't want to jump into a 9 to 5 cubicle. Not for me. And so I was starting to edit for other YouTubers while making my own like prank videos, some of which actually went viral. And then a very large YouTuber's filmer hit me up and said, "We like the way you edit this video for your channel. Could you do some for us?" And that person turned out to be Vitaly. He was a Russian prankster, millions, billions of views. Has a little bit of an interesting image at the moment, but from when I was working with him, he was a great dude. So I edited for him for a whole year, and I honestly was probably a little underqualified at the beginning, but I just sold myself well, and the video that I did edit for myself was good enough to get his attention. And so in that whole year, I gained a lot of editing skills, which is was I was getting paid for it, and it was super important to me starting my own YouTube channel because once I saw like some other people find success with poker vlogs, I was playing poker at that time at the bike 2 to 3 times a week. I was editing for Vitaly, and it was just a natural like uh, cross collaboration there. And eventually, I did my own thing. But yeah, the oversaturation for me never was something that crossed my mind, just because I was confident. Like I was making videos for Vitaly that were getting millions of views, and so I kind of knew like how fast to cut it up, what graphics to use. You got some thumbnail and title ideas that other people weren't doing. So from the beginning, my videos, I mean, I look back at them now and I'm like, that's terrible. Like, I watch my first 5 ones and I'm like embarrassed. But I leave them up there as a reminder, like, that you start somewhere. And the hardest thing to do is for people nowadays, they're always like, oh, yeah. Like, I saw a guy at a meetup game in Phoenix, like, a few years ago. I told him, oh, you got to start posting and then don't stop. As long as you like what you do, you're going to get subs. And then he messaged me, like, when I hit 1 million. And he's like, oh, man, I still haven't started. But, like, your advice about keep posting in shorts and stuff really was good advice. And that's like the hardest thing. The hardest thing is to start, and then once you start, you just got to be consistent. As
Yeah,
long
the
as
being consistent can be pretty hard too, I think. Like,
it's very hard, but that's where what comes in. Like if you love what you do, then you're just not going to stop. Like there was a few times along the first 2 years I was posting where my views were going up, and then all of a sudden they just kind of stagnated and like went down, and there wasn't any growth. In fact, there was like regression, and I was like, if I didn't really like playing poker and making videos, I would just stop. And I mean, here we are 4 years later.
here we are. And
Yeah.
I know, from catching up from watching some of the content, you released something quite different than I think a lot of the other content, which was you and your current editor kind of talking about this reaching 1 million. And you talked about deciding to hire an editor after editing your first 100 videos, which I can only imagine the amount of bandwidth that goes into playing and shooting and editing and distributing. Distributing is like a huge part of the content. So talk a little bit about the shift from, doing it solo to being able to hand off a little part of the baby, which can be
Yeah,
difficult
it
too.
was it was a pretty seamless transition. So I've had two editors. My first guy was named Gil, and he came on after the first 100 videos, and then Lucas just came on like a little over a year ago. And yeah, so in the beginning when I handed off to Gil after the first 100, I'm like, do I really do I really need to hand it off. Like the amount of money it saves by me doing it on my own, and it's just a personal touch is like super cool. But what really was the catalyst for me doing that was I wanted to go on a road trip for 3 months um, through like Arizona, Texas, and then into Florida, all from California to Florida. Basically, I did for 3 months, and that was just impossible for me to do and post regularly if I'm trying to like play for 5 6 hours a day and then edit for another like 7 8 and drive for the another 5. Yeah, so Gil really came on right on that road trip. I said I need someone for this, and then once I gave him the reins, it was just like amazing. And plus, editors are just better than me. Like I'm not. I did do editing for a year, but I'm not an editor by nature or like what I want to. That's not my profession that I want to be. So giving it to someone who's better than myself is just a no brainer. So Gil was amazing for that time, and then Lucas now in this era is just amazing. With short specifically, he just completely changed my short game. So I was posting on TikTok to begin with, and he just changed up all that. Um, yeah. both really great dudes that I need to get to a million subs. I wouldn't have gotten without either of them.
So that's something else I wanted to talk to you about, and something I think any of us in the content space at this point have seen and have, flirted with and just recognize sort of this shift is this short form content. So starting as someone who's a vlogger primarily and then moving more into the short game. Can you talk a little bit about that transition, and also just, I think people sometimes don't realize the amount of labor that goes into a vlog, where sometimes you can get more bang for your buck, a lot more bang for your buck from something that seems significantly easier to bang out.
We'll bang for the buck. We'll bang for the buck. Yeah, so I was posting regularly on TikTok. It was myself and shout out to Next Gen Poker. We're kind of the pioneers in the TikTok game for short form content. And I grew that page up to 200K on TikTok, and great. And it's no longer in my possession anymore because TikTok doesn't. Back then, they didn't understand poker stuff and gambling, and they thought it was um, I don't know, just taboo or whatever. So they would give me strikes and they'd warn me, "Oh, we're gonna take your page down." I was like, "Yeah, right." And then they did. They took my whole page down. So I don't have. I didn't. I lost that page. Then I started up another one when people started to repurpose all my content and were claiming it to be theirs. That kind of pissed me off. So I
Yeah.
restarted a whole nother TikTok. Long story short, my new editor Lucas, he saw the good work I was doing on TikTok, and I was editing it all myself there in app, and it was taking me about an hour to do each one. And he's like, "I think we can really do something on YouTube and Instagram Reels. If you give me the raw footage instead of editing it in the platform, then I can edit it on the Adobe suite, like Premiere and After Effects and stuff, and add in some AI and all this crazy stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, yeah, go for it." And he's got it down to a science now. He says it takes him anywhere from 2 to 4 hours for every 45 to 60-second video, but it shows because it's just insanely good and very, attention grabbing. Um, but YouTube has made it really good. Like, we would never stop posting even if it didn't get good views, just because YouTube's incentivizing. It's high recommendations and pushing it out to new people, as you can see from my like insane growth. And also they're talking about increasing revenue on it. So we don't really make that much on it right now, but you can't always do everything for money. Like, building a brand is also just like gaining subs and not like creating ad revenue from each short. But YouTube is hinting that potentially in 2024 they're going to increase the ad revenue, which would be nice. That helps make a little bit more. But shorts are the wave, and a lot of pages aren't utilizing it, in my opinion, to the full effect. They're just kind of repurposing horizontal content on live streams or vlogs, and kind of a little bit lazy. But if you take the time to do like vertical stuff, like I'll go to a 5-6 hour session and I'll just sit down with my camera with my phone and film vertically, and yeah, really get some good stuff.
Makes a huge difference. And it's so interesting because really we're in this wild west, right, where all of the major platforms are competing to be TikTok or to be the short form, vertical content space. And so I can only see that, like, the incentives have to come. The incentives have to be here soon. If you have Reels competing with TikTok, competing with Shorts,
Yeah.
Facebook, like, they somebody wants to be the one who ends up in the end, and so they're going to have to find a way to incentivize us to choose a platform. Obviously YouTube has won out as the more long form one to begin with, and I've been shocked how much they've jumped into the shorts. It's glorious. And I love that you say not doing it for the money, because I think one of the other things you guys mentioned that I could definitely appreciate as a poor person myself, is that a lot of your followers love this like 1, 2, 1, 3 content, and that's something that you continually dip back into, even when you're putting your toes into the bigger games and jumping into some of the bigger spaces, that you always continue to stay humble, dude, to go start from the bottom. Talk to me about who you think your audience is, your core audience, because it's harder with shorts, I think, to really know sometimes who your like
Yeah.
core audience
I think
is.
each piece of content touches a different demographic, and specifically each platform does. So like I realized this pretty early on, like Facebook, kind of easy to tell who's on Facebook. It's the older generation primarily, and when I'm out in public and someone's like, "Oh, I saw your video," I always ask them where, because I want to see like what type of person is watching it where, and usually the older gentlemen and some of the grandmas that come up to me, they're like, "Oh, I saw it on Facebook." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So it's like good that I'm posting there. You know, sometimes I'm like, "Why am I
Yeah.
posting on Facebook? Is it worth the effort?" Um, TikTok and Instagram Reels are a lot of like high school home games and younger college kids, just like which is awesome. And then YouTube is the very dedicated older fans and some of like the smart, crushers and stuff like that want to give me their like input. But all of the comments that are like um, everyone thinks that they're better than me. Like on each platform, they're funny. So like Instagram and TikTok, all the people that think they're better than me aren't, for sure. They're all just like dinguses. And then on YouTube, there actually are like people will go into deep analysis on like three betting ranges and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you actually might like have a point here. So it's like I take note of certain things that people say on different platforms. It's kind of funny like that. But yeah,
It's
you're right. Each one is severely competing with the next. Like Instagram is pushing it out really heavy. Like randomly, a video will blow up on Instagram where it doesn't blow up on another one. So like each platform has its own algorithm, which is cool. We kind of noticed a pattern with TikTok and YouTube. So TikTok immediately will shoot up really fast. Like that's just the way it works. And YouTube's a little bit more slow, and a lot of our growth comes in like day 3 and day 4 of a short. But if we notice that a TikTok one is breaking like 30, 40, 50K views there, and as opposed to stagnating around 20K and less, then we know the YouTube one's going to pop. And it's happened a few times where like a week down the line, my guy Lucas is like, yep, yeah, the YouTube one's popping now. I knew it. I was like, okay, cool. It's just like an interesting dynamic. And Instagram's rolling out a new feature now where you can upload a reel with 3 different captions, and then it'll test each caption to a different audience, and then it will whichever one performs the best, it'll automatically go with. And that's something they're supposed to be. I haven't done it yet because I haven't had the ability, but when it does, that's going to be so awesome
oh,
because
I
then I
love
can
that.
then I can retitle the ones on the other platforms that title that worked best. It's kind of
It's
like beta
always just
testing or something weird. Yeah,
yes, and it's just information. It's just like the whole thing, the whole game is about
it's
information, right?
changing.
So
Yeah, it's
yes.
crazy how much now is at your fingertips in terms of like AI and like I mean, a lot of our thumbnails, my guy Lucas, he does with AI. Like he'll take a pixelated image from a screenshot of the live stream. He'll run it through an AI program and it'll upscale it and make it like super crisp and like almost like you're taking it on like a Canon camera. It's just like crazy stuff that no one really
Dude,
knows about and sees.
I just was watching I was watching like a list of 10 of these different movies. Basically, people were making movies using AI from generated images that were also not real images to begin with. Like, and my head was just exploding. Like, like coming from a film background, I was just like, this is it, dude. Like, this is it. We're losing it. You're going to be able to make a movie on your phone that looks amazing in 3 years that you don't even, I mean, it's definitely changing. And it's so interesting. I thought, when I was watching your video with Lucas and you guys were talking about other people like questioning your subs, I was
Oh yeah.
like, even this, like the metagame of the people who are watching your videos and then watching other content and then being like, but this is getting this many views and like, are there this many subs? I'm like, who are these people? What is going on?
I even
Tell us
got
about the
one
juicy drama.
I even got one on the video where I showed an in-depth, like non-screenshotted images of where the subs are coming from, and like 2 or 3 people commented that they still think I'm buying subs, and I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. I literally just showed you one short got me 200K subs. Like, the heck, I'm not buying subs when they're literally giving it to me for free.
It's so crazy, and it's like, who are the people that are worried about this? I'm crying because I'm just like, it's amazing to me the amount of
They're
just
just
like
jealous, or like
sweat.
the
Yeah.
one point that I can see them making is like when they look at my subs and then they look at my vlog views and if they just don't even look at anything to do with shorts, then it kind of looks a little funky because most of my vlogs resonate or they stay between like 40K and 100K views, right? And that's what something we're trying to break out in 2024 is get like consistently the floor at 100K vlog views and up. But right now, everyone's just watching my content on shorts. So if you don't look at my shorts views and see that my floor there is like 800K views, then it kind of makes sense. It's like, why does Wolfgang have a million subs, but he's only getting 50K vlog views? I mean, that makes a little sense, but they're just not looking at a big picture. And I've given literally so many examples of like of explaining this, and they just ignore it. So it's on them.
Does it ever make it, or
Yeah.
at least this is something I've been struggling with? It becomes so demotivating to do long form content because the energy that goes into it is so much more. And then it seems like the output that you get in terms of numbers and all of the things that people, a lot of people would say matter, it's just so much
Yeah.
harder to get.
I see that point, and it is demotivating, but and also a lot of work. But I think it's worth it, honestly. And also, I'm a competitive person, so like right now, there's no one getting more shorts views than myself, right? But there's still more people that are um, getting more long form views than myself, a lot actually. So that's kind of what motivates me. It's like I've hit a million subs, I hit 100K subs, I'm getting the most amount of shorts views, like I have the most followed poker channel on the internet, like all this kind of stuff. But like I still need things to attain to, right? Like I can't just like be like, okay, I'm done. I'm kick my feet up, like let's go to Costa Rica for 8 years. That's not going to happen. So I mean, it would be nice, but I still want to like I want to be better for myself too. And I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm a good content creator. Let's get those vlog views up and compete with like the OGs, that are still getting like 100K, 200K on that. So, and plus, I think that like I said, each content you post reaches a different audience, and I still want to like reach the people that want the longer form content. And the vlogs are just more personal. I can put more of my personal touch on it. I can include a lot of fans in it, whereas the shorts are just like 30 seconds of stuff. Whereas, I mean, I have a video coming out on Friday, and like one of my best friends from California is in it, and he's playing a hand, and I can really like touch on that. I showed his biggest win in that session and stuff. So it's just way more personal, and it's more of a creative outlet. So yeah, not going to stop doing that. Plus, it helps when you have an editor because he does most of the grunt work. You just
Yeah.
have to make good content. So I'm not going to stop. I mean, as long as I
Well,
still have money to pay him, we're making videos.
let's get it. Um, well, the first time we saw you on PokerOrg, my boy Ace was very excited to see you. I want to say, was it in Florida? Maybe at the Seminole?
He saw me for the first time at Choctaw, I believe, and then I
Choctaw.
saw him at the main event in Vegas.
Okay, cool. So it was, you were talking about, playing poker tournaments was maybe not something that you were doing that frequently. You're more of a cash game grinder, but you told me you're about to go to Paradise for the WSOP. Is this tournament circuit maybe part of what we can expect to see from you in 2024? You're
A
jumping on the
little bit.
tournament grind?
A little bit, yeah. I'm definitely never going to be a grinder for many different reasons. One, you have to study a lot more, a completely different niche. And then um, just like the grind of it, you can play for 2 3 days and min cash and you're bummed or bust, and then you're just even more bummed. But more so than that, the content doesn't do really good, and I don't really classify myself as like a poker, like I am a poker pro by nature, but more content creation, right? So if if the videos don't do as well unless you make a final table, and you're only final tabling like one out of every X amount of times, then it just really doesn't make a lot of sense. But that being said, I love to travel, so I will always go to a fun location for like a main event or for like a few days if it's worth it. um, but in terms of like grinding the WSOP circuit and going to Europe and grinding like those circuits, probably not. I'd probably just pop in and out for like a week here and there to fun spots, and that also will keep me going and not burn out, because the last thing I want to do is like do that, which I probably could for like a year, but then I'd be so burnt out. It's like, how am I going to keep posting? And then people are then the algorithm will hate you if you stop, and people will hate you if you stop posting. So I'd rather everyone like me and just keep doing what I'm doing than like try to go ballistic on like firing 100 tournaments a year.
All of that makes very logical sense. And one of the things you touched in your video about getting a million subs, but actually a question that someone else on my team wanted me to ask you, I think for another article that they're writing, but it all ties all right in together, is what do you have on the horizon for 2024? We're fixing to just jump into the new year. And then another question is, what would you say was your highlight in 2023? Feels kind of odd, but
We'll start with 2023. The highlights were hitting 100K and a million in the same year. That's pretty cool. Other highlights are playing my biggest pot ever, which was at the Tropicana 29K pot. I hit a flush on the turn. Some dude flopped Broadway, and I got him in that. Another highlight would have been just full sending it and playing 50 100 at the lodge with Brad Owen, Andrew Nemi, and Mariano. I texted Skull Mike, who runs the lodge game there, and I'm like, got any fun games coming up? He's like, yeah, this is the lineup for this Friday stream or whatever. I was like, okay. And he's like, by the way, it's 50 100. I was like, crap. Like, that's like too big for me at this moment. But then I was like, if something great happens here, it's just going to be an awesome story. And so I didn't sell any action. I bought in for 20K, and I was like, we're just gonna go for it. And I ended up having my biggest win ever. I made 26K, and I like teared up in my outro. I'm like, not even about the money. It was just more like I was scared to do it, and then I was like, something in me was like, I'm not backing out. And then I whatever the word is. I succeeded.
Yeah.
In terms of what is on the horizon, a lot of fun stuff. So I'm going on a long trip in January for my aunt's. Sorry for all these texts.
Dude,
I,
you're
I
popular, I can tell.
I still haven't figured out how to like mute on computers text and stuff. So, um, yeah, I'm going on a long trip in January. My aunt's like 55th birthday or something. She's taking us to Antarctica. So we're going to Antarctica for a few weeks. And so I tossed the idea around to a few people here in Dallas where I'm staying, and they're like, "Oh, you got to be like the first person ever to make a vlog in Antarctica." I'm like, "Yeah, but what degenerates am I gonna find on this boat with like 30 people on it? Like, like if I can find one person that plays poker, I'll make a vlog playing Heads Up. But otherwise, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But that'll be a really cool experience that I'm looking forward to. Ever
That's like
been?
so on my bucket list. I don't have that many bucket list places, and Antarctica is probably the top one. So
Yeah.
I'm super jealous, and I think your aunt is really cool.
Yeah, that's the German side of our family. That's just like very adventurous, spontaneous.
Yeah.
Normally, the trips are all cold weather climates, and they're like Park City or like a ski trip because she doesn't have any kids. So me and my sister are like her, bona fide kids that we once a year we do like a 2 week trip together. And this year she's like, "Oh, we're going to Antarctica." Well, it's actually been like a 2 year in the works kind of thing. Meanwhile, my inner brain is like, "Okay, so how do we get there?" And then I researched the Drake Passage. And if anyone wants to do a little deep diving on that, keyword is deep diving right there. It's like sketchy, and you got to take like Dramamine because the boat will rock because the waves are. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to that part, but once we get there, I'm sure. Other
There's
than
a
that,
lot. If
yeah,
anyone's looking to deep dive, there's a lot just going down in Antarctica. Go ahead and just deep
yeah.
dive into what's going down in Antarctica. It's
Other
a
than
lot.
that, poker wise, we have this celebrity invitational tournament that I'm running back. It happened in Vegas at the Poker Go studio a few months ago. So I'm doing that, I think, in February. And my goals for 2024 is just to like play in more cool games, meaning like unique opportunities. So like not, I mean, obviously I'll keep traveling to casinos and playing live streams and meetups, but if anyone out there reaches out to me like from a sports team or from like someone who has like this ranch with a home game in a barn or like yeah, stuff like that. I just want to like showcase more fun games that people don't have access to and just like show them like all the fun home games that are happening around the US because I feel like in the last few years poker's really like exploded, not like outside of like the normal person that plays. Like last week I had a super cool opportunity to play poker with the Buffalo Bills, and like it's just mind blowing to see like these athletes, these just amazing like athletes that like love poker almost more than me. You know what I mean? I'm like, how do you have time to be like get good at poker here if you're like the 1% of like a football player in the world? It's just crazy. So like if I could do more of that, 2024, I'd be super stoked.
We're putting out the invites, guys. Like, feel free to just hit up Wolfgang. Although, do people just get at you like in your comments and stuff? This is like okay, boomer, but I usually contact people on DM and Twitter. That's like the easiest way to usually get a hold of people. And I was like, dude, Wolfgang's like not even about that Twitter life. I remember
No,
talking to the next gen guys. They were like Twitter. I was like, dude, I don't know. How do people get a hold of you?
it's funny because not to date anyone here, but the older
It's fine.
generation loves Twitter for poker specifically, right? I feel like
Yeah.
that's where like all the banter goes down and the drama and like all that stuff. And like us newer guys, like no pun intended, next gen, it's like we're on these other platforms. So most of the invites nowadays come Instagram DMs is a lot of them.
Just
Instagram's
slide
a
into the new DMs. It's fine.
Exactly.
There's always a
Instagram
DM.
DMs is the wave, and it's nice because then I can kind of vet someone out right away. I can just click on their profile. Not that I care about followers whatsoever, but I can like see if they're verified, if they seem like I'm not going to get jumped somewhere, like who do their friends look like. Like I can really do a lot of deep diving and like make sure I'm not like going into an ambush.
I like it. That's smart. That's a smart move. Smart play. Well, I have just enjoyed so much getting to know you, and I very much look forward to seeing you on the circuits, on the scene. Not all the time. I know you're not trying to jump into that tournament grind, but I definitely look forward to seeing you out and about. And for those who don't already follow, for those who haven't already, been catching up with all of your content, where can they find you?
Just everywhere Wolfgang Poker on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, no, because I lost that page. So it's Wolfgang Poker Bang, with the bang afterwards.
We lost our page too, for what it's
Yeah.
worth.
So
Like,
that's
and
the only one
relatively
that's different.
recently. So they're still on that like kick people off for poker thing.
Yeah. Other than that, though, it's pretty easy to find me. And if you just open your phone and you type in poker, there's probably a short that'll pop up your way. So
Yeah, and even on YouTube, when I just typed in Wolfgang, I expected there to be a lot more. Actually, you were like right up there towards the top, and I was like, "All right, dude, that's your real last name, is it?"
my middle name is Wolfgang.
Ah, it's
Yeah.
a great choice. It's like very catchy. That was a
It was
lucky
my
play.
my grandpa's name, and then they gave it to me as a middle name. And who knows? What maybe I'll do something fun with it later.
Yeah, like have a baby and name them Wolfgang.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Just saying, just pump the brakes, guys. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you so much. And I know I wish you luck in paradise. That will make for a very fun and exciting vlog either way. And yeah, thank you so much for joining.